I'm Nicholas Porter, and I'm delighted to be here with you today. And before I jump into the gospel, I want to thank your illustrious rector and your vestry for inviting me and allowing me here to be with you today. Lord, Lord, open to us. But he replied, truly, I tell you, I do not know you. It's an alarming response that Jesus, this person we attribute all kindness and all love to, doesn't open the door. And, we feel that this time of year. It's that season that the ancient Celts used to call a thin time, where the light and the darkness sort of change ratios. And we feel and sense the unseen quite a bit more. And frankly, none of us like to be locked out. It's why we get to the airport early. It's why we get to boat terminals early. It's why we have some remembered traumas of being locked out of our big brother or big sister's room as children. We don't like being locked out. But Jesus isn't just talking about being locked out. The reading is about the final judgment, when all things will be completed, set right and completed. And the bridesmaids are those who've been appointed to wait for the bridegroom, for the Messiah, for Jesus to come and complete things. The kicker is it takes a long time. Longer than they expect. It's what Jerry was reading about in the letter to the Thessalonians. And they fall asleep. And then some, when they wake up, are out of oil. And their friends say to them, I can't help you. You got to do this yourself. And off they go, and it's too late. It's too late. I think we're all waiting for that completion, for that better time. Whether it's events in the Ukraine or the Middle East, or racial divisions and endless political shenanigans in our own country, or our home life, our situations at home, worrying about our bank account, worrying about our health, worrying about our marriages. We're all waiting for that kingdom moment when things are healed. And we too get drowsy. And we too ask, where can we get that oil to see us through? Where can we get that oil? So I spent a lot of time in the Middle East and kicked around quite a bit. I want to share with you a little story from Lebanon, which is north of where a lot of the fighting is today. And it's a story from the Lebanese Civil War. Most of you or have enough years under your belt to remember the Lebanese Civil War. It was really in the 80s and 90s, well, 70s and 80s, excuse me. And it was like Armageddon. It was like Armageddon. During that war, there were lots of factions fighting. Not going to give you a history lesson, don't worry. And in that fighting, a woman and her 2 children woke up on the wrong side of the line. During the night, the front had moved, and they were suddenly in enemy territory. Scary enough just like that, but she was particularly scared because her husband was a commander in the Maronite Phalangist forces, one of those militias fighting. And so she and her 2 children went and hid in an abandoned house, hoping, praying, begging God that they would be spared. And they waited, and they waited. And then one morning, there was a knock on the door. And the mother very carefully went to the door and opened it. And on the other side was another woman, about her age, about her height, with brown hair and brown eyes, just like she had. And this woman, who is remembered as Martha, says to the mother, "They know that you are here. They found you. And tonight they will come and take your life. You have to leave right now. You need to get your things and leave right now." And the mother replies, as the two little ones are hugging her legs, "How can I leave now? I can't get 300 yards down that road before I'm not caught." And at that moment, Martha was Greek Orthodox, became a sister in the gospel, and she said to the mother, "You can go, because I will take your place. And when they come looking for you, I will call myself by your name." And the mother said, How can you do this? You know what's going to happen." And Martha says, "I do, but I don't have any children." So in that hour, they traded places. And the mother and the children, they did escape. And Martha, well, you know the end of Martha. Where do we get the oil? That oil to wait. I think we look at Martha. We look at her courage, and we look at her compassion, and we look at her faith. And her example reminds us very graphically that oil we need to endure and wait for that completion of all things that we all so want in our hearts. Requires prayer. It requires kindness, forgiveness, mercy. It requires us to make time to see the world differently, to literally stop and smell the roses, to take time to look at that sunset, that small act of kindness or love we receive, to take time for ourselves and our souls, because there is a weight. Listen to what John Wesley, very famous Methodist pastor, said. Do all the good you can do, by all the means you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you can. That's how we find the oil. And just as the mother encountered Christ Jesus in Marta, so it will be for us. You know, there's a paradox of grace, that when we forgive others or are kind to others, merciful to others, loving and generous to others, it seems to always benefit us more by opening the door to Marta. The mother was set free. That's the call for us. That doing good to others, through the grace of God, ends up doing good for us. And that goodness is the oil. So in a few moments, we're going to come forward. Do we come forward for Holy Communion here? Yeah. We're going to come forward for Holy Communion. And as you do that, and you reach out your hands for that real presence of the Messiah, remember Marta. Remember Jesus trading places for us on the cross. And ask for that grace to forgive again, to grant mercy again, to be kind again. Our God knows who we are. It will be done in small steps.